The autumn leaves fell like copper pennies around the old brick building of Riverside High School, where Maria first saw Adam during sophomore year. She was standing by her locker, fumbling with the combination lock, when he walked past carrying a stack of textbooks that threatened to topple over at any moment. Their eyes met for just a second, but in that second, something ignited between them that would burn for years to come. Adam was the kind of boy who drew attention without trying. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that seemed to hold entire conversations without words. He played guitar in the school band and wrote poetry in the margins of his math homework. Maria was quieter, more reserved, with long brown hair she kept in a braid and a smile that could light up a room when she chose to share it. She loved reading novels under the oak tree in the courtyard and dreamed of becoming a writer someday. Their first real conversation happened 3 weeks later in the library. Maria was researching a history project on the Civil War when Adam sat down across from her at the long wooden table. He was supposed to be studying for a chemistry test, but instead he kept glancing at the book she was reading. Finally, he spoke. "That's a good book." His voice was soft, almost uncertain. Maria looked up surprised. "You've read it?" "Twice, actually. The author has this way of making you feel like you're right there in the middle of everything." They talked for 2 hours that day, forgetting about homework and tests and everything else. They discovered they both loved old movies and rainy days and the smell of coffee shops. Adam told her about how he wanted to travel the world someday, and Maria shared her dream of writing a novel that would make people cry and laugh and feel everything. Deeply, from that day forward, they were inseparable. They ate lunch together under the oak tree where Maria used to read alone. They studied together at the library, though they spent more time talking than actually studying. Adam would play guitar for her, and she would write little poems on napkins and slip them into his backpack. Their friends teased them constantly, but they didn't care. By the time junior year rolled around, everyone knew they were together. They went to homecoming and prom. They spent weekends exploring the small town they lived in, finding hidden spots by the river where they could talk for hours. Adam would bring his guitar and play while Maria lay on the grass watching clouds drift across the sky. They carved their initials into the bark of their oak tree surrounded by a lopsided heart. David had been Adam's best friend since elementary school. They had grown up on the same street riding bikes together and playing basketball in Adam's driveway until the streetlights came on. David was taller than Adam with blonde hair and an easy smile that made him popular with everyone. He was on the football team and always seemed to know the right thing to say in any situation. When Adam and Maria started dating, David was happy for them. He would hang out with them sometimes, and the three of them became a tight group. Maria thought of David as a brother, and David seemed to genuinely care about both of them. They would all go to movies together or hang out at the diner on Friday nights, sharing fries and milkshakes and talking about their futures. But somewhere along the way, something shifted in David. It was subtle at first, so subtle that no one noticed. The way his eyes lingered on Maria a little too long. The way his smile became forced when Adam talked about their plans together. The way he started making excuses not to hang out with them as much. Jealousy is a poison that works slowly, seeping into cracks you didn't know existed until it's already spread too far. Senior year arrived with all its promise and uncertainty. College applications and scholarship essays and the constant question of what comes next. Maria got accepted to the state university with a scholarship for creative writing. Adam got into the same school for music composition. They made plans to get an apartment together after graduation to start their life together properly. They talked about getting married someday when they had saved enough money and built stable careers. But life has a way of disrupting even the best-laid plans. Adam's father got sick in the spring of senior year. Cancer, they said. Aggressive and unforgiving. The medical bills piled up faster than they could manage. Adam's mother worked 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. They were drowning in debt, and Adam watched his father grow weaker every day. The man who had taught him to play guitar and throw a baseball was disappearing before his eyes. Adam made a decision. He couldn't go to college. He needed to work to help his family. He needed to make real money, not minimum wage from a part-time job. His uncle owned a construction company in Alaska and was always looking for workers. The pay was good, excellent even, but it meant leaving everything behind for at least 2 years, maybe more. He told Maria on a warm evening in May, sitting under their oak tree. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Maria's hand was in his, and he could feel her pulse quickening as he explained the situation. "I have to go." His voice cracked. "I hate it, but I have to. My family needs me. My dad needs me." Tears streamed down Maria's face. "How long? 2 years minimum. Maybe 3. I'll save every penny I can, and then I'll come back. We'll get married like we planned. I'll give you the life you deserve. What about us?" What about our plans? Adam pulled her close, holding her like he might never let go. This doesn't change anything. I love you, Maria. I'll always love you. I'll call you every chance I get. I'll write you letters. And when I come back, we'll start our life together properly. I promise. Maria wanted to be angry. Wanted to tell him not to go. Wanted to be selfish and beg him to stay. But she saw the pain in his eyes, the impossible choice he was making. She knew his family. She knew his father. She understood even though it broke her heart. I'll wait for you, she whispered. However long it takes, I'll wait. They spent every moment together until Adam left in June right after graduation. They made memories trying to store up enough to last years apart. They took pictures by their oak tree. They went to their favorite diner one last time. They stayed up all night before he left, just talking and holding each other, afraid that falling asleep would make morning come faster. David came to say goodbye the morning Adam left. He helped load boxes into the truck and shook Adam's hand firmly. Take care of yourself, man. I'll look after Maria while you're gone. Don't worry. Adam hugged him, grateful to know Maria would have a friend nearby. Thanks, David. That means a lot. Keep her smiling for me, okay? The goodbye between Adam and Maria was devastating. They held each other at the bus station until the very last moment. Maria tried to be strong, but the tears wouldn't stop. Adam kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, trying to memorize everything about her. 2 years, he promised. I'll be back before you know it. The bus pulled away, and Maria watched until it disappeared completely. She felt like part of her soul had been ripped away. David stood beside her and put a comforting hand on her shoulder. He'll be back. He loves you. The first few months were hard but manageable. Adam called whenever he could, which wasn't often because he worked 12-hour days 6 days a week. The phone service in the remote area where he worked was unreliable at best. But he wrote letters, long, detailed letters about his days, and how much he missed her, and how he was saving money for their future. Maria wrote back just as often, pouring her heart onto pages that would travel thousands of miles to reach him. Maria started at the university that fall. She dove into her classes, using studying as a way to keep her mind occupied. She made new friends, but none of them could fill the atom-shaped hole in her life. She would walk across campus and see couples holding hands and feel the ache of his absence like a physical pain. David checked on her regularly like he had promised. At first, it was just casual meetups for coffee or lunch between classes. He would ask how she was doing, if she had heard from Adam. He seemed genuinely concerned about her. Well-being and Maria appreciated having someone who understood what she was going through. But gradually, so gradually that Maria didn't notice at first, David's visits became more frequent. He started showing up at her dorm with food when she was studying late. He invited her to parties and football games, trying to keep her social life active. He was there for every moment when she felt lonely. Every time she cried missing Adam. What Maria didn't see was the calculation behind David's kindness. The plan that had been forming in his mind since the day Adam left. David had realized something about himself over the years. He didn't just care about Maria as a friend. He wanted her. He had wanted her for longer than he cared to admit, even to himself. Watching her with Adam had been torture. But he had buried those feelings deep, pushed them down where they couldn't surface. Now Adam was gone, and David saw an opportunity. If he could make Maria forget about Adam, if he could make her doubt Adam's love, then maybe she would turn to him instead. It was wrong. He knew it was wrong. But desire makes people do terrible things. Jealousy and want twisted together until he convinced himself that he deserved her more than Adam did. After all, he was here and Adam wasn't. The poisoning started slowly, like drops of arsenic in wine. 6 months after Adam left, David mentioned casually that he had heard Adam was spending time with some of the local women in Alaska. He said it like it was just gossip, something he wasn't sure was true but thought she should know. Maria's heart clenched, but she pushed it away. Adam wouldn't do that. Adam loved her. But the seed was planted. David watered it carefully over the following weeks. He would mention seeing Facebook posts of Adam at bars with groups that included women. He would sigh and say things like, "I'm sure it's nothing, but it's been a long time, you know how guys get." Each comment was designed to sound concerned, to sound like he was looking out for her while simultaneously planting doubt. Maria tried calling Adam more frequently, but the calls were hard to connect. The time difference made it difficult, and Adam's work schedule was brutal. Sometimes weeks would go by without them talking. His letters still came, but less frequently now. He was exhausted, she could tell from his writing. The work was harder than he had expected, and Alaska was lonely and cold. When they did talk, Adam could hear something different in Maria's voice, a distance that hadn't been there before. He asked her about it, but she would just say she was tired from school. She didn't want to burden him with her doubts. Didn't want to sound accusatory without proof. But the doubts were growing fed by David's careful manipulation. David ramped up his campaign as the first-year mark approached. He showed Maria a photo he claimed someone had sent him of Adam with his arm around a woman at a party. The photo was real, but taken out of context. The woman was his coworker, and it was a group photo at a work celebration, but cropped and presented the right way. It looked intimate. Maria stared at the photo, feeling sick. "Who sent you this?" "Just someone who thought you should know." David's face was the picture of concern. "Look, I hate being the one to show you this. Adam's my best friend. But you're my friend too, and I can't stand watching you wait for someone who might not be waiting for you." Tears blurred Maria's vision. "I don't know what to believe anymore." David pulled her into a hug. "I'm so sorry, Maria. You deserve better than this." That night, Maria tried calling Adam but couldn't reach him. She was too upset to write a letter. For the first time, she wondered if waiting was foolish. If Adam had already moved on and was too cowardly to tell her. The months dragged on, and David was always there. He took her to movies to distract her. He brought her soup when she was sick. He celebrated with her when she got good grades. He became her closest friend, her support system. And slowly, Maria found herself depending on him more and more. David told her more stories, always carefully crafted to sound reluctant. He said Adam had been seen dating someone. The people were talking about how Adam had forgotten about his girlfriend back home. None of it was true, but Maria had no way to verify. The distance between her and Adam had grown so vast that his letters felt like they were coming from a stranger. By the time 18 months had passed, Maria barely recognized her relationship with Adam. They spoke maybe once a month, if that. His letters had dwindled to one every few weeks. He sounded tired and distant, and she couldn't shake the feeling that he had changed, that he had moved on without actually ending things. What Maria didn't know was that David had been intercepting some of Adam's letters. Not all of them that would be too obvious, but every few weeks a letter would arrive at Maria's dorm, and David, who had gotten friendly with the mailroom worker, would pocket it before she ever saw it. He told himself he was protecting her from false hope, but really he was sabotaging their connection, piece by piece. Adam, on his end, was growing desperate. He wrote to Maria constantly, but her responses had become so infrequent and cold when they did come. He couldn't understand what had changed. He tried calling, but she rarely answered, and when she did, she sounded distant, distracted. He asked her what was wrong, but she would give vague answers or change the subject. He asked David about it during one of their rare phone calls. David was reassuring. "She's just stressed with school, man. You know how it is. I check on her when I can. She misses you, but she's handling it." Adam wanted to believe him. David was his best friend after all. If something was seriously wrong, David would tell him, wouldn't he? As the 2-year mark approached, Adam was exhausted, but triumphant. He had saved more money than he had dared hope. His father's medical bills were paid off, and there was enough left over for a down payment on a small house and a ring. He had been looking at rings online for months, trying to find the perfect one for Maria. He called her to tell her he was coming home, that he had booked a flight for the following month, that their waiting was finally over. But Maria's response wasn't what he expected. "Oh." Her voice was flat. That's good. Maria, I'm coming home. We can finally start our life together." There was a long pause. "Adam, I don't know if that's what I want anymore." His heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" "Things have changed. I've changed. It's been 2 years, Adam. We're different people now. I'm still the same person who loves you. I've been working myself to death up here for us, for our future. Maybe we shouldn't have planned our future so young." Her voice was cold, distant. "Maybe we were just kids who didn't know what we were doing." Adam felt panic rising in his chest. "This isn't you talking. What happened? Is there someone else?" "No." The lie came quickly. "I just think we should take a break when you get back. Figure out who we are separately." They argued for another 20 minutes, but Maria wouldn't budge. Adam hung up feeling like his world was collapsing. 2 years of backbreaking work, of loneliness and sacrifice, and for what? He considered canceling his flight, considered staying in Alaska and giving up entirely, but he couldn't. He needed to see her face to face, needed to understand what had gone wrong. David knew Adam was coming home. He knew he was running out of time. If Adam and Maria saw each other in person, if they actually talked, David's carefully constructed web of lies might unravel. He needed to make sure Maria was completely turned against Adam before he arrived. The final blow came 2 weeks before Adam's return. David told Maria that Adam had gotten someone pregnant in Alaska. It was a complete fabrication, but David delivered it with such convincing sorrow, such apparent reluctance that Maria believed him. "I didn't want to tell you." David's eyes were full of false sympathy. "But you need to know before he comes back. He's been lying to you this whole time, Maria. He's not the person you thought he was." Maria broke down completely. 2 years of accumulated doubt and pain and loneliness came crashing down. She sobbed in David's arms, feeling foolish and used and heartbroken. The Adam she loved wouldn't do this. But maybe the Adam she loved didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never had. David held her, stroking her hair and whispering comforting words. And in her vulnerable, devastated state, Maria didn't see the satisfaction in his eyes. "You deserve so much better," David murmured. "You deserve someone who would never leave you. Someone who has been here all along." Maria pulled back, looking at him through tear-stained eyes. "David." He cupped her face in his hands. "I've been in love with you for years, Maria. I watched you with Adam and I kept quiet because he was my friend, because I wanted you to be happy. But he threw that away. He doesn't deserve you. Let me show you what it's like to be with someone who will never leave you, who will put you first always." Maria was too broken to think clearly. David had been there for everything for 2 years, while Adam was nothing but a distant voice on a phone and words on paper. Maybe David was right. Maybe she had been waiting for a ghost while real love was right in front of her. She kissed David that night. It wasn't passionate or desperate. It was sad and defeated and born from pain rather than love. But David didn't care. He had won. Over the next 2 weeks, Maria convinced herself that she was moving on. She spent more time with David. She let him hold her hand around campus. She tried not to think about Adam. Tried not to remember their oak tree and the promises they had made. The guilt was overwhelming, but she pushed it down. Adam had betrayed her first, or so she believed. Adam arrived home on a cold March evening. He hadn't told Maria exactly when his flight landed, wanting to surprise her. He went to his parents' house first, dropping off his bags and hugging his mother, who cried at seeing him. His father was doing better now, able to sit up and smile, and that made everything feel slightly less awful. "I need to see Maria," Adam told his mother. "I need to fix this." His mother touched his cheek, worry in her eyes. "Be careful, son. People change." Adam drove to the university that night, his heart pounding. It was late, but he knew Maria often studied in the library until it closed. He parked and walked across the familiar campus, following paths he had walked with her years ago. He found her coming out of the library, bundled in a winter coat. She was laughing at something, and it took him a moment to realize she wasn't alone. David was beside her, and as Adam watched frozen in place, David leaned down and kissed her. Maria kissed him back. Adam's world shattered into 1,000 pieces. He stood there, unable to move, unable to breathe, watching the girl he loved with his best friend. Every sacrifice, every lonely night in Alaska, every dollar saved and every dream built, suddenly felt meaningless. They broke apart, and that's when Maria saw him. Her face went white. Adam. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed up completely. He just stared at them, at the betrayal standing right in front of him. "Adam, what are you doing here?" Maria's voice shook. David stepped forward, looking uncomfortable but not surprised, not guilty enough. "Hey man, I can explain." Something cold and dark was spreading through Adam's chest. "Explain what?" "Explain how you stole my girlfriend while I was working myself to death? Explain how my best friend stabbed me in the back?" "It's not like that," Maria said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then what is it like?" Adam's voice rose. "I leave for 2 years to take care of my family, to save money so we can get married, and I come back to find you with him. You were cheating on me," Maria said, suddenly angry. "Don't act like you're innocent." "David told me everything." Adam looked at David in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "The women in Alaska, the pregnancy, all of it." Maria's eyes blazed with hurt and anger. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "What women? What pregnancy?" Adam felt like he was in a nightmare. "Maria, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've spent 2 years working and sleeping and thinking about you. That's it." David shifted uncomfortably. "Look, man, I only told her what people were saying." "What people?" Adam turned on him. "There are no people, David. I spent 2 years working on remote construction sites with the same crew of guys. We barely saw anyone outside our camp. What the hell did you tell her?" "The truth," David said, but his voice wavered. Adam saw it then. The guilt flickering across David's face. The realization hit him like a physical blow. You lied to her. Adam, David started. You lied to her. Adam's voice was deadly quiet now. You made up stories to turn her against me. My best friend destroyed my relationship with lies. Maria looked between them confused. What's he talking about, David? Nothing. He's just trying to manipulate you. David reached for Maria's hand, but she pulled away. Tell her, Adam demanded. Tell her the truth, David. Tell her there were no other women. No pregnancy. Tell her how you've been feeding her poison for 2 years. David's facade cracked. His expression shifted from guilt to defensiveness to something darker. So what if I did? You left her, Adam. You abandoned her for 2 years. I was the one who was here for her when she cried. I was the one who took care of her. I deserve her more than you do. Maria stumbled backward, looking at David like she was seeing him for the first time. You lied to me? I protected you, David insisted. I showed you who he really is. Someone who would abandon you by making up lies. Maria's voice broke. By manipulating me? Everything you told me was fake? I love you, Maria. David grabbed her arm. Everything I did was because I love you. Let go of me. Maria yanked her arm away. Tears were streaming down her face. How could you do this? You were supposed to be my friend. You were supposed to be his friend. Adam watched this exchange, feeling numb. 2 years. 2 years of his life wasted because of jealousy and lies. He looked at Maria, seeing the devastation on her face, knowing she had been manipulated. But she had still kissed David. She had still given up on them. Something dark and terrible was growing inside Adam, a rage unlike anything he had ever felt. He had lost 2 years with Maria. 2 years he could never get back. His youth, his dreams, his future all stolen by the person he had trusted most. David turned back to Adam, his expression hardening. She's happy with me now. Just let it go, man. You lost. Those words were the final straw. Something snapped inside Adam. Later he wouldn't remember deciding to do it. Wouldn't remember the conscious choice. One moment he was standing there shaking with rage, and the next his hands were around David's throat. David fought back, but Adam had spent 2 years in manual labor. He was stronger now, hardened by physical work. They crashed to the ground and Adam's hands squeezed tighter. He could hear Maria screaming, could hear David choking, but it all sounded far away. All he could think about was the betrayal, the lies, the stolen years. David's struggles grew weaker. His face turned red, then purple. Maria was pulling at Adam's arm, screaming at him to stop, but Adam couldn't stop. The rage had taken over completely. Every lonely night in Alaska, every unanswered call, every changed letter poured into his hands. By the time Adam finally let go, it was too late. David lay still on the ground, his eyes open and vacant. Maria collapsed beside the body, sobbing hysterically. Adam sat back, reality crashing down on him. What had he done? He looked at his hands, then at David, then at Maria. She was staring at him with horror and fear and something like pity. Adam. Her voice was barely a whisper. What did you do? He took everything from me. Adam's voice was hollow. He destroyed us. Maria was shaking violently. David was a liar and a manipulator, but he didn't deserve to die. And now you're a murderer. The word hit Adam like a slap. Murderer. He had killed his best friend. The rage drained away, leaving only cold, terrible clarity. He looked at Maria, knowing he had lost her forever. She would never look at him the same way. The sweet, pure love they had shared was dead along with David. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Adam didn't run. He just sat there looking at the mess of his life spread out before him. 2 years ago, he had left to build a future. Now he had no future at all. Maria stood up, backing away from him. Tears streaked her face. I loved you, she whispered. I loved you so much, Adam. We could have worked through this. We could have gotten past David's lies. But now there's no going back. Adam wanted to say something. Wanted to apologize or explain, but no words came. What could he say? Nothing would change what he had done. The police arrived and Adam didn't resist. They put him in handcuffs and read him his rights, but he barely heard them. As they led him to the patrol car, he looked back one last time at Maria. She was standing under a streetlight, holding herself and crying. She looked small and broken and lost. Their eyes met for just a second. In that second, Adam saw everything they had been and everything they could have been. He saw prom night under the stars. He saw lazy summer afternoons by the river. He saw their oak tree with the heart carved into it. He saw the future they had planned, the life they had promised each other. And he saw it all crumble to dust. The trial was brief. Adam pleaded guilty. He didn't try to justify what he had done, didn't make excuses about manipulation or betrayal or rage. He had taken a life and he would pay for it. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in prison. Maria attended the sentencing. She sat in the back of the courtroom and didn't say a word. When it was over, she walked out and Adam never saw her again. He heard later that she had transferred to a different university, that she had changed her major and moved away, that she was trying to rebuild her life from the ruins they had all created. In prison, Adam had plenty of time to think about everything that had happened. He thought about David and the jealousy that had twisted him. He thought about Maria and how easily doubt had taken root. He thought about himself and the rage that had consumed him. He wrote Maria letters but never sent them. What could he say that would matter? "I'm sorry I killed someone in front of you. I'm sorry I threw away our future." The words felt empty and insufficient. On quiet nights, he would lie in his cell and remember. He remembered the day they met in the library. He remembered her laugh and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about books. He remembered playing guitar for her under their oak tree. He remembered promising they would be together forever. They had been so young, so naive. They had thought love was enough. They hadn't understood that love needs trust and communication and presence. They hadn't understood how easily it could be destroyed by distance and lies and doubt. Adam thought about the person he used to be. The boy who wrote poetry and played guitar and dreamed of a future with the girl he loved. That person was gone forever, buried under the weight of what he had done. He was a murderer now. That would be his identity for the rest of his life. Sometimes he wondered what would have happened if he had just stayed calm that night. If he had walked away and given Maria time to process the truth about David's lies. Maybe they could have fixed things. Maybe they could have rebuilt what was broken. But he had let rage control him, and in doing so had destroyed any chance of redemption. The years passed slowly. Adam read books and worked in the prison library, and tried to become something resembling a better person. But the guilt never left. Every night he saw David's face. Every morning he woke up knowing he had taken a life. The punishment was not just the prison, but the knowledge of what he had become. He heard through the grapevine that Maria had eventually graduated, that she had become a teacher, that she had married someone else years later, someone who treated her well. He was glad for her, glad that she had found some measure of peace. She deserved happiness after everything that had happened. But Adam also knew that he had damaged her in ways that might never fully heal. She had lost 2 people that night. Her manipulative friend and her love-turned killer. She would carry those scars forever just as he carried his. On the 10th anniversary of that terrible night, Adam sat in his cell and finally allowed himself to cry. He cried for the boy he had been and the man he might have become. He cried for David, whose jealousy had destroyed him. He cried for Maria, who had been caught between them. And he cried for the love that had once been so pure and simple and beautiful. Love was supposed to conquer all. That's what the songs and movies and books said. But Adam had learned the hard truth. Love could be twisted and manipulated and destroyed. Love could survive distance, but not doubt. Love could be fierce, but if it turned to rage, it became something else entirely. He thought about their oak tree and wondered if it was still standing, if their carved initials were still visible, or if time had worn them away. He hoped the tree was still there. Maybe it would outlast all of them, a silent witness to a love that had burned bright and then consumed everything around it in another cell somewhere in the same prison, or maybe a different one entirely. There might have been someone else who had made a similar mistake, someone who had let anger override reason, someone who had destroyed their future in a moment of rage. Adam wasn't special. His tragedy wasn't unique. Prisons were full of people who had loved and lost and made terrible choices. But knowing that didn't make it easier. Each person's pain was their own to carry. Each person's regret was their burden. Maria never visited him. He didn't expect her to. What would they even say to each other? The gulf between them was too vast to cross. They lived in different worlds now. She was out there living and moving forward. And he was here, frozen in the consequence of one terrible night. Sometimes Adam tried to imagine an alternate reality. One where he had stayed calm. One where he and Maria had talked and worked through David's betrayal together. One where they had eventually gotten married and built the life they had planned. In that reality, he was happy. In that reality, he had kept his humanity. But that reality didn't exist. He lived in this one where choices had consequences and rage had a price. The other inmates didn't know his full story. They knew he had killed someone, but not why. He didn't talk about it. What was there to say? He had loved a girl and lost her and killed his best friend. It sounded like a bad country song. At night, when the prison was quiet, Adam would close his eyes and try to remember what Maria's laugh sounded like. It was getting harder as the years passed. Memory was unreliable, blurring and fading like an old photograph. He was terrified of the day when he wouldn't be able to remember her face clearly. He kept one picture of them together from high school. It was worn and creased from being looked at too many times. In it, they were sitting under their oak tree, smiling at the camera. They looked so young, so innocent, so convinced that love would be enough. He wished he could reach through time and warn that boy, tell him to communicate better, to trust his love, to never let rage control him. But time only moved in one direction. The past was fixed and unchangeable. All he could do was live with it. 20 years was a long time. Adam would be 40 when he got out, if he got out. Middle-aged with a criminal record and no prospects. What kind of life would that be? He tried not to think about it. Tried to stay present. But the future loomed ahead, dark and uncertain. He wondered if he would ever feel real happiness again. If something inside him had broken that night beyond repair. He functioned. He existed. But the light that had once driven him was gone. He was a shell of the person he had been. Maria probably didn't think about him anymore. She had moved on, built a new life. He was just a painful memory she had learned to lock away. That was how it should be. She deserved to be free from the tragedy that had consumed them all. David was frozen forever at 20. He would never get the chance to grow and change and maybe become a better person. His jealousy had destroyed him just as surely as Adam's rage. 3 lives ruined because of manipulation and doubt and violence. The waste of it all was staggering. If David had just been honest about his feelings, if Adam had communicated better with Maria while he was in Alaska, if Maria had trusted their love enough to question David's lies, so many if-onlys that led nowhere. Adam thought about forgiveness often. Could he forgive David for the lies? Could Maria forgive him for the murder? Could he forgive himself? The answer to the first was yes, eventually, understanding that hurt people hurt people. The answer to the second was that it wasn't his question to ask. The answer to the third was no. Some things were unforgivable. He had taken a life. That wasn't something you gotta just move past. It would define him forever. Killer. Murderer. The boy who loved too much and lost control. In his letters that he never sent, Adam tried to explain to Maria what had happened inside him that night. The accumulation of pain and betrayal and lost time. The snap when something vital inside him broke. But even to himself, it sounded like excuses. Everyone felt pain. Everyone experienced betrayal. Most people didn't kill. He was weak. That was the truth. In the moment when it mattered most, when he should have been strong, he had been weak. The irony wasn't lost on him that he had gone to Alaska to prove his strength, to show he could provide and sacrifice and build a future. But all that physical strength had meant nothing compared to emotional weakness. Adam had learned too late that real strength was controlling yourself, staying calm under pressure, choosing reason over rage. Those were the things that mattered. But knowing that now didn't change what he had done. Sometimes other inmates would ask him if he regretted it. The question always seemed stupid. Of course he regretted it. He regretted everything. He regretted leaving Maria in the first place. He regretted not communicating better. He regretted trusting David. He regretted losing control. His entire life was regret now. But he had learned that regret without action was worthless. So he tried to be better in the small ways available to him. He helped other inmates learn to read. He broke up fights when he could. He tried to add something positive to a place that was full of darkness. It didn't make up for what he had done. Nothing could. But it was something. 20 years. 7,300 days. 175,200 hours. Adam had counted them all. Each one a tiny payment toward a debt that could never be fully paid. Maria was out there somewhere living her life. Maybe she was happy. Maybe she had children of her own by now. Maybe she rarely thought of that cold March night when everything fell apart. He hoped so. She deserved peace. As for Adam, he had no illusions about his future. When he got out, he would be a ghost drifting through a world that had moved on without him. He would carry his guilt and his regret and his memories of a love that had turned to ashes. Their oak tree was probably still standing. Maybe new generations of teenagers carved their initials into it, making promises they believed would last forever. Maybe someone sat beneath it reading books just like Maria used to. The tree didn't care about human tragedy. It just grew season after season, indifferent to the pain that had unfolded beneath its branches. Adam thought about that tree more than he probably should. It had become a symbol in his mind of everything innocent and pure that had existed before. When he closed his eyes, he could still see the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. He could still hear Maria's voice reading poetry aloud. He could still feel the rough bark against his back as he played guitar. Those memories were all he had left of the person he used to be. The prison chaplain visited Adam sometimes, a kind older man who genuinely seemed to care about the inmates' souls. He would talk to Adam about redemption and forgiveness and the possibility of grace. Adam listened politely but didn't believe much of it. Some sins were too great for redemption. But the chaplain was persistent. He told Adam that carrying guilt was important, but drowning in it served no one. That Adam was still young enough to have decades of life ahead of him. That those decades could mean something if Adam chose to make them meaningful. Adam wanted to believe him. Some days he almost did, but then night would come and he would see David's face again, and any hope would crumble. Maria had written him one letter, just one in all these years. It arrived on the 5th anniversary of that night. Adam's hands shook as he opened it. The letter was short. Maria said she had worked through a lot in therapy, that she understood now how David had manipulated her, and how the situation had spiraled beyond anyone's control. She said she forgave Adam not because what he did was okay, but because holding on to hate was destroying her. But she also said she never wanted to hear from him again. That forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, that she had built a new life, and he wasn't part of it, and never would be. She wished him peace and signed it simply with her name. Adam read that letter 1,000 times. The forgiveness felt like a gift he didn't deserve, but the finality of it, the absolute closure, cut deeper than any condemnation could have. She forgave him, but she was done with him. Permanently. He respected that. He had to. It was the least he could do. After that letter, Adam stopped writing the unsent letters to her. There was no point. She had said everything that needed to be said. Their story was over, and any fantasy of some future reconciliation was just that, a fantasy. He focused instead on surviving each day. Prison was brutal in ways that television never captured. The violence was real, but so was the crushing boredom, the lack of privacy, the constant noise, the way time seemed to move differently, thick and sluggish. Adam made friends of a sort. Other men who had made terrible mistakes. They didn't judge each other. They understood that every person in here had a before version of themselves that was better than who they had become. They shared that common ground of lost potential. There was Marcus, who had killed a man in a bar fight over an insult. There was Ray, who had robbed a store and accidentally shot someone. There was Carlos, who had been driving drunk and hit a family. All of them carried their own specific guilt, their own what-ifs and if-onlys. They played cards together. They talked about sports and movies and anything that wasn't the reality of where they were. It was a way of staying human in a place designed to strip humanity away. Adam learned that most people who ended up in prison weren't monsters. They were people who had made catastrophically bad choices, usually in moments of extreme emotion. That didn't excuse anything, but it made it more understandable. Humans were fragile creatures capable of both tremendous good and terrible evil, sometimes within the same person. He thought about David a lot, too. Tried to understand what had driven his former friend to such elaborate deception. Jealousy, obviously, but there was more to it than that. David had wanted to be the hero of Maria's story. He had wanted to be chosen not because he had competed fairly, but because he had eliminated the competition through manipulation. In a twisted way, David had loved Maria too. It was a selfish, possessive love that prioritized his own desires over her well-being. But it was love of a sort. And that made the whole tragedy even more complicated. 3 people who had cared about each other in different ways. 3 people who had all made choices that led to destruction. There were no simple villains in this story, just flawed humans doing damage. Adam wondered sometimes if he could have walked away that night, if he had seen Maria and David together and just turned around and left. Let them have each other. Moved on with his life. Found someone else eventually. The answer was probably yes if he had been stronger or wiser or less consumed by the injustice of it all. But he hadn't been any of those things. He had been 20 years old and heartbroken and full of rage. He had spent 2 years sacrificing for a future that had been stolen by lies. And in that moment, all he had felt was the overwhelming need to make someone pay for his pain. So David had paid, with his life, and Adam was paying with his freedom, and Maria was paying with trauma she would carry forever. Everyone lost. The prison psychologist told Adam that he showed signs of post-traumatic stress, that the event had fundamentally changed his brain chemistry, that he was stuck in a loop replaying that night over and over. She prescribed medication and therapy, and Adam participated because there was nothing else to do. But the medication couldn't change the past. Therapy couldn't bring David back or fix what was broken between him and Maria. It could only help him cope with the present, and that felt like such a small thing. Years kept passing. Adam got older. He found gray hairs at his temples. He noticed lines forming around his eyes. His 20s slipped away, then his early 30s. The world outside kept changing. New technology, new presidents, new generations. But prison remained static, unchanging. He heard about Maria occasionally through the grapevine. Small-town gossip had a way of filtering through. She had gotten married to a man who worked as an accountant. They had 2 children. She taught English at a high school and was apparently good at it. Students liked her. Adam was genuinely happy for her. She had managed to build something good from the ruins. That took strength. She was stronger than he had ever been. He wondered if she ever told her husband about what had happened, about her first love and the tragedy that had destroyed it. He hoped she had. Secrets had a way of festering. He knew that better than anyone. Sometimes Adam imagined what his life would have looked like if that night had gone differently. He would have talked to Maria. She would have realized David had lied. They would have been angry and hurt, but they would have worked through it. They would have gotten married, maybe not right away, but eventually. They would have had kids. He would have worked construction locally or maybe gone back to school. They would have grown old together. In that alternate reality, there was peace, happiness, mundane problems like paying bills and deciding where to go on vacation, arguments over whose turn it was to do dishes, laughter over inside jokes, the comfortable familiarity of a long partnership. But that reality existed only in his head. In actual reality, he was inmate number 87423. He was a killer. He was someone people crossed the street to avoid once they knew his story. The truth was, Adam had died that night too. The person he had been, the hopeful boy with dreams and a guitar, had ceased to exist. What remained was something else. Something harder and sadder and permanently damaged. He tried to hold on to hope anyway. The chaplain told him that hope was an act of defiance in a hopeless place. So Adam hoped vaguely for something better. Even though he couldn't imagine what that would look like, his parents visited for the first few years. His mother cried every time. His father looked at him with such disappointment that Adam almost wished he wouldn't come. They stopped visiting eventually. It was too painful for all of them. He understood. He was alone now. Truly alone in a way he had never been before. Even in Alaska, he had known Maria was out there waiting for him. Even at his loneliest, he had carried her love like a talisman. Now he had nothing. No one was waiting for him. No one was thinking about him except as a cautionary tale. The other inmates didn't know about the oak tree. They didn't know about poetry and guitar and lazy afternoons by the river. They knew him only as he was now, and maybe that was better. The past was a ghost that haunted him. Maybe it was mercy that no one else could see it. Adam started teaching music classes in prison. It turned out there was an old guitar in the recreation room that no one used. He restrung it and taught himself to play again. His fingers remembered the chords even after all these years. He taught other inmates basic songs. It was something positive, something that reminded him he had been human once. When he played, he didn't think about Maria. The guitar had been part of their story, but music itself was bigger than that. Music was universal and impersonal. It existed outside of heartbreak and tragedy. Playing was one of the few times Adam felt almost okay. The warden noticed and approved. Anything that kept inmates calm and occupied was good for the prison. Adam was given more freedom to run the music program. It became his purpose, such as it was. He wondered what Maria would think if she knew. Would she be glad he had found something constructive? Would she feel bitter that he got to keep music when she had lost so much? He would never know. 10th year passed, then 11th, then 12th. Adam was 32 now. Maria was 32. They had been so young when everything fell apart. Now they were fully grown adults living completely separate lives that would never intersect again. Adam tried not to think about milestone birthdays or anniversaries, but they came anyway. The anniversary of the night they met. The anniversary of their first kiss. The anniversary of when he left for Alaska. The anniversary of the murder. That last one was marked by the prison in official records. A permanent stain. He got word that his father had passed away. Cancer again, more aggressive this time. Adam wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. Security risk, they said. He sat in his cell that day and thought about all the ways he had failed his father. The man had needed money for medical bills, and Adam had provided it, but at what cost? His father had lived, but his son had become a killer. Had it been worth it? The question haunted Adam. If he could go back, would he still leave for Alaska? Knowing what he knew now, would he make the same choice? The answer was complicated. His family had needed help that was real. But maybe there had been other options. Student loans, scholarships, local jobs that paid less but kept him close to Maria. Maybe they could have made it work differently. But hindsight was cruel. In the moment, with his father dying and bills piling up, going to Alaska had seemed like the only real option. And maybe it had been. Maybe the tragedy wasn't the leaving, but everything that came after. David was the one who had poisoned things. If David had just been a real friend, if he had supported Maria and kept her confidence in Adam strong, then everything would have been different. The betrayal was the real catalyst. But Adam had still made the choice to kill. No matter how much he examined the situation, that choice was his alone. David deserved consequences for his lies, but not death. Nothing David had done warranted death. Adam knew this. He had known it even in the moment. But knowing something and controlling yourself were different things. Rage was a fire that consumed reason. The 13th year was when Adam finally started to change internally. Something shifted. He couldn't carry the weight anymore. It was crushing him. The psychologist had been trying to get him to this point for years, and finally he arrived. He started actually processing what had happened, instead of just endlessly replaying it. He examined his own culpability honestly. He looked at his choices and took responsibility for them. Not just superficial responsibility, but deep ownership. He had killed David. That was the central truth. Everything else was context, but context didn't erase action. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. And in a life defined by tragedy and loss and irreversible mistakes, something was better than nothing. The oak tree stood in the courtyard of Riverside High School, watching new generations of students fall in love beneath its branches. The tree didn't remember Maria and Adam. Trees don't remember, but their initials were still there, faint and worn but present. A testament to a love that had been real and pure before it was destroyed by distance and lies and rage. A reminder that even beautiful things can end in tragedy. A warning carved into bark for anyone who cared to look. But mostly the initials were just there, slowly fading with each passing year, being covered by new carvings from new lovers making promises they believed would last forever. And maybe some of those promises would last. Maybe some of those couples would beat the odds. Maybe they would grow old together and laugh about their teenage selves carving hearts into trees. Adam hoped so. He hoped that somewhere out there people were getting it right, that his tragedy wasn't the only possible ending, that love could survive and thrive and become something lasting. He had to believe that, because if love always ended in destruction, then what was the point of anything? So he believed, even though his own love had turned to ashes, even though he had destroyed his future with his own hands. He believed that somewhere, somehow, people were doing better than he had done. And on the rare occasions when he let himself remember, not with guilt, but with simple sadness, he could still see her. Maria at 16 with her long braid and bright smile. Maria reading under the oak tree. Maria laughing at something he said. Maria before everything went wrong. That Maria lived in his memory, perfect and untouched by tragedy. She would stay 16 forever in that private place. And maybe that was the only good thing to come from everything. The memory of pure, uncomplicated love before the world crushed it. Adam was 43 now. More than half his life had passed since that terrible night. Eventually, he would be older than his crime. Eventually, more of his life would be after than before, but the division would always be there. Before the murder and after. Before he destroyed everything and after. The line that split his life into two distinct people. He lived in the after now, trying to make peace with it, trying to build something meaningful from ruins. It was hard work. It was lonely work, but it was the only work available to him, and so he continued. Day after day, year after year, carrying his guilt and his regrets and his memories, moving forward because going backward was impossible, and standing still was death. Somewhere Maria was living her life. Somewhere David's family was living without their son. Somewhere Adam's mother was growing older and hoping her son had found some measure of peace. And somewhere in a courtyard, an oak tree stood strong and silent, witness to countless love stories, including one that had ended in blood and tragedy and loss. The tree would outlive them all, would stand long after Adam and Maria were gone, after everyone who remembered that night was gone, after the story had faded into nothing. And maybe that was mercy, to be forgotten eventually, to have the pain fade not just for the living but in the very memory of the world. Until then, Adam would keep going, keep trying, keep hoping that his worst moment didn't define his entire existence, even though he knew it probably did. Because what else could he do? Nothing else. Just this. Living with what he had done and who he had become and trying somehow to make the remaining years mean something. It wasn't redemption, but it was all he had.